webinar dedicated to the NIS2 Directive and its challenges. The NIS2 Directive marks a major evolution in cybersecurity governance at the European level, its objective being to strengthen the overall level of cybersecurity in the European Union and involve more key and important actors. Today, we will have the pleasure of listening to our colleagues from unyer, from Austria, Germany, Italy, and France, who will share their complete legal points of view and the operational realities encountered in their respective jurisdictions. We also have the pleasure to have an expert to give us the operational implications of NIS2. Thank you all for your presence, and I propose without further delay to start this conference with our first guest on the regulatory landscape of security, Aurélie, my colleague from PIDAL, an IT expert as well as in charge of innovation at PIDAL. Aurélie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gassia. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. Before we zoom in on NIS2, let's take a step back and look on the bigger picture. Perhaps we could switch on the... Thank you. Because NIS2 is not an isolated text, we wanted to describe the legal European legal framework, which gives you a much broader European strategy about data to govern data, secure and digital systems also, and promote trustworthy innovation across notably specific sectors with NIS2 also. On screen, you can see 6 key regulations. The first one is a Cyber Resilience Act, which focuses on cybersecurity of products, notably regarding IoT products. We also have the Data Act, which is well known as GDPR, GDPR. And the Data Act addresses how data, especially data, industrial data from IoT products also, can be shared, used, and create value for economic actors. The well-known AI Act, which is a famous one, perhaps, which focuses on AI products, also include a very risk assessment approach, which consists in provide more exigent obligation regarding the level of risk of the products, AI product. We also have the DORA regulation, which is a very specific text because it's focused on financial sector for banks and assurer too, and which established specific cybersecurity rules and obligation for service provider, IT service provider notably. The Data Governance Act is focusing on governance of data, sharing and reuse. And all these texts, as you can see, have several common points, but one of them is to create value around the data, with data, I would say, and to enhance reuse of data also. And finally, we have the NIS2 Directive, but my colleagues will present it more deeply, which focus on cybersecurity of essential and important entities, and which modernize and expands the EU cybersecurity framework. So that was to present how the NIS2 directive includes in a much broader approach, and to introduce in a second slide, thank you, the risk management approach. So all these texts have a very practical approach, I would say, because it is based on the risk. It implies that all actors, before sending a product, create a product, have to evaluate the category of risk in which the products or the service will be implemented or associated. And regarding the level of risk, they will have some different obligation because it is a practical, again, approach, and the purpose is not to block or to stop the innovation. It is more to secure the products, the services, and also the user of the products. So this regulation do not apply one size fits all obligation. You will have different obligation, as I said, regarding the level of risk of your company, for instance. Instead, the European Commission decided to adopt a graduated and proportional model. I think, as a lawyer, it is a very good point because it creates some credibility and also acceptability of the obligation, because when you know that your products includes risk, you know that you will have to enhance, for instance, security measures. So this approach offers flexibility and also demands responsibility, again, because before launching products, you will have to know and evaluate the risk and frame it from a legal perspective with your lawyers and your counsel and with cybersecurity specialists also. It is very important to have all the scope to anticipate, I would say, all the risk which could be associated with the products. It is no longer just about formal compliance. It is more a process, an understanding of your company real vulnerabilities, and taking proportionate and strategic actions and measures, and to also communicate about it. It is dynamic by design, secured, I would say, also by design, and it includes self-assessment practice and also a continuous process about the risk. So that's a philosophy about or related to all this new regulation, data regulation. And now we will focus on NIS2 topic and regulation. It is a directive, the only one. You have seen just the screen before. We had a lot of regulation, but it is the only directive which has to be transposed, and that's why it's very interesting to have a local perspective from our colleagues. And I'm pleased to pass the floor to my colleagues, and we will walk us through the national transposition of the NIS2 directive in their jurisdiction.
Thank you so much, Aurélie. So, as Aurélie mentioned, we are going to go deep inside the subject and discuss the national transpositions in our respective jurisdictions. First, we have the pleasure of welcoming Barbara Kushar, a partner in IT at our colleagues' firm at KWR. Barbara, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning from Vienna. What is the status in Austria regarding the implementation of the NIS2 Directive? The NIS2 Directive should have been implemented in all EU member states already by October 17th, 2024. Many EU member states, including Austria, failed to do so, and the European Commission already has initiated infringement proceedings also against Austria. The exact date of implementation currently depends on the parliamentary legislative process, and is still open since we have a new government since this spring. The former government was not successful that the draft act, which is already available, passed the 2/3 majority in the Austrian parliament last year. So the draft act was already sent out, but the opposition parties anonymously had opposed the act. What was the reason for this? There were there was one major point of criticism, which was the cybersecurity authority, which would have to be established in Austria. And the draft had foreseen that the Ministry of Interior should be the cyber authority for Austria, and the Platform for Fundamental Rights, on whose expertise the opposition parties based their criticism, said this would be a huge conflict of interests. Because the Ministry of Interior is responsible for IT security and for individual crime prosecution. So there was the risk was seen that that one side is concerned with closing security gaps and the other one prefers to keep them open for spyware, for example. So it was also criticized that there was no incentive to report security gaps. Instead, such good actors would have to fear to become target of criminal prosecution themselves. So the NIS2 Act last year would have provided a chance to change this situation and create an independent authority in Austria, which clearly failed and was not the case. Another problem in Austria, according to experts, is the lack of skilled cybersecurity experts, because the authority estimatedly will need 200 to 300 cybersecurity experts to work there in order to communicate with thousands of companies affected by the NIS2 Directive in Austria. It was clearly communicated that more and more Austrian companies have fallen victim to ransomware attacks and other attacks on the IT systems, and therefore it was clear that something has to be done on a national level, and this should have been implemented by the creation of an optimized framework for high level of cybersecurity in Austria, and also establish a center, bundle competence, establish a new strategy. So big goals and little time left to achieve them now, if the new act should be implemented in 2025, and also considering the already started infringement proceedings by the Commission. This is my status report from Austria.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And now we have the pleasure of welcoming Jean-Baptiste Chanial, my partner from FIDAL.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Gassia. Hello, everyone. So we are late too, actually, in France. In France, the draft transposition bill was presented to the Council of Ministers in mid-October 2024, just before the deadline set by the EU for transposition. So one of the peculiarities of the French transposition text is that its purpose is to transpose 3 European directives at the same time. So in addition to the NIS2 directive, the draft law transposes the directive of the 14th of December 2022 on the resilience of critical entities, which strengthen by setting a common European standard the preparation and response to risk to infrastructure considered as critical by EU in certain sectors of activity, such as, for example, energy, transport, banking, or health. Finally, the bill transposes the directive of the 14th of December 2022, accompanying DORA, which provides writes a more rigorous framework for the use of digital technologies in the financial sector, as presented previously by Aurélie. So to streamline the process, France has opted for an accelerated procedure, limiting parliamentary scrutiny to a single reading by each chamber, in order to make up for the delay caused by the dissolution of the National Assembly in 2024. On the 12th of March 2025, the Senate adopted the bill with amendments at first reading. Senators adopted few amendments, including some from the government, to clarify definition and defer the entry into force of certain measures. Afterwards, the bill was then passed to the National Assembly, and a special committee tasked with reviewing the bill is currently holding hearings, and the final text is expected in the coming month, probably this autumn, or I mean the last quarter of the year. Some hearings by the National Assembly highlight a desire to limit over-transposition. That is to say, a desire not to go beyond the minimum requirements set by the European Directive. However, we will see in the light of the final text, obviously, to what extent this objective is actually achieved. Now, looking ahead, the legislative process will be followed by crucial implementation steps, because in the months following the enactment of the law, transposition will continue with the production of decrees and orders. The obligation of NIS2 will enter into force in France once all the transposition text, that is to say the law I mentioned, but also the decrees and orders, have been promulgated. In the meantime, in line with its existing initiatives, the French National Cybersecurity Agency, called the ANSSI, so ANSSI, is helping entities to understand the new obligations and the authorities' expectations. Notably by providing a dedicated digital space, as I will present later. ANSSI currently plays a central role in providing advice, monitoring and support, and just get prepared to the entry, the future entry into application of the NIS2 obligations. So I will now invite Sylvia Bauer to present the current status of the NIS2 Directive transposition in Germany.
Thank you very much. Here we are. Thank you very much. Here's Sylvia speaking from Germany, and I have some breaking news. We finally did it, or well, we're nearby. Last week, we established, there was a new draft published by our German Federal Ministry of the Interior and Home Affairs, which is based on the last draft of last year, but anyway, based on the election, or due to the elections and our, well, political, I don't know how you call it, our political problems in this regard. we have a little bit delayed, but anyway, now it's published, and now it is expected to be enforced maybe at the end of the year. The new draft, we have presently a consultation of expert and associations started, and we will see what will happen there, if they have major impacts or if they have some further ideas how we can implement it, or what changes shall be go into the new act. But anyway, we expect, to be honest, that there will be a new law in force at the end of the year, and it's called the NIS2 Umsetzungs- und Cybersicherheitsstärkungsgesetz. I think there is someone who is have a lot of, I don't know, fantasy regarding the name of the act. But anyway, in short, it's the German BSI Act, where you can find the major issues of the new legislation. And interesting as well, we had in the past, in the BSI Act, some regulations which are quite similar to the NIS2 directive, but in the end, they were only applicable to CRITIS. Agencies or CRITIS operators and CRITIS entities. They were around, it was estimated around 4,000. Now there's to be expected that there are around 8,000 essential entities, which include the CRITIS entities of the past. And beside this, we have around 21,000 important entities in Germany which have to comply with the new act. And this is a lot, to be honest, because most of them haven't implemented yet the requirements of the NIS directive, respectively, of now the BSI Act. It is considered that around, or it is estimated that around 17% of the German entities have implemented cybersecurity measures which are in line with our BSI Act, respectively with the new requirements. And we have to keep in mind that we have, I think it was in 2024, last year, around 226 billion euro estimated fees or damages with regard to cybersecurity incidents. And this is a big problem, to be honest, and therefore we always wonder why we haven't implemented the respective measures, not yet. But anyway, now we hope that everything will fall in place, and that we have then in future some cybersecurity measures implemented by all the entities. And what we have done, we have in the BSI Act now implemented, or there will be implemented, some more powers of the Bundesamt für Sicherheit in der Informationstechnik, which is the Federal Office for Information Security, which is the responsible authority for implementation, control, auditing, and everything of the BSI Act. And they will be, well, the office to whom I will register, to have to notify cybersecurity incidents. We change a little bit the processes, which means that you have now in future more obligations to notify the BSI than before. We have further requirements based on the NIS directive with regard to registration, notification, risk management, and whatever. And most of the companies, as I've said, which haven't implemented these requirements yet, they have to start soon, I think, because we will not have any big time to implement all the measures, because if the BSI Act comes into force, then everything is in place and you have to apply if you are under, or if you're obligated to apply to the act. Because our government, they said that we had a lot of time, the companies had a lot of time to, well, become aware or to check what the requirements of the NIS2 directive are, and they had a lot of time to check what maybe our government planned with regard to the implementation of the NIS2 directive, and therefore they said, okay, you have to be prepared, and you had plenty of time to do it. Beside this, our government decided that the federal administrative bodies, that they have to comply, or that they have a level which is not in line with the usual cybersecurity measures which should be expected from such bodies, and therefore they have implemented in the BSI Act as well further requirements for the establishment of these, or the implementation of these the measures by these bodies, and we will see what will happen there, because, well, yeah, it might be a turning point for everybody, but we don't know if all implementation can take place in the necessary how you call it, in the necessary impact. And this is always a problem we have in Germany, that we have a lot of requirements, but maybe not the money and not the time to do it. But we will see what will happen, and we are still optimistic. And then I will hand over to my colleague from Italy, Pirola, Mario Valentino.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be with you today. Good morning from a very hot Roma. And Italy has implemented the NIS2 Directive in due course, and I prepared the timeline with the activity done and activities to be done in this respect. First of all, in February 2025, the companies on a self-assessment basis registered into the platform provided by the Italian Cybersecurity Authority, which is ACN, Autorità per la Cybersicurezza Nazionale. Then, in the meantime, the Italian Cybersecurity Authority, together with the public authorities in this respect, provided the list of entities which were subject to NIS2 implementation. Then, in mid-April, the two lists have been matched, meaning that the Italian Cybersecurity Authority notified to those which were self-assessed inside the list and were at the same time present into the public list, whether they would be confirmed or removed from the list of essential or important NIS subject in this respect. Then, so we now have a list of entities who are fully subject to NIS2 implementation and NIS2 measures. And in fact, now, up to 31 of July, the NIS entities now are integrating and updating the information uploaded to the platform in order to complete the content of the registration. Then, from 1st of January, such NIS entities will comply with the obligation regarding notification of basic significant incident. And then, by the end of September 2026, the NIS entity shall comply with the obligation regarding the basic security measures as mentioned into the technical annex to the NIS implementation Italian law. So at this stage, we can finally say that Italy did his job in implementing the NIS2 directive, and then we will see what would be the developments according to these two steps to be held in 2026. So I leave the floor to Gacha for the next steps.
Thank you so much, Mario. So thank you to each of our colleagues who have given us the environment of legislation. And now let's go directly into the business operational steps, which entities should put in place to ensure compliance. Maximilian, the floor is all yours.
Hello from Vienna as well. Well, as Barbara already informed you, we do not have implementation of the NIS2 directive in Austria yet. However, we assume that the implementation will happen this year. Therefore, we encourage all companies and to implement and take the first steps to be NIS2 compliant soon. This is for the reason that the rejected draft implementation, for example, provided that the companies should register with the competent authority, which we do not know yet, within 3 months after the law will come into force. Since the content of the rejected draft implementation was very similar to the directive of the European Union, companies can use the directive as a guideline. We suggest to take the first steps to. Sorry, no, I got lost. What could be the possible steps? Yes. At the first place, we suggest that each company will determine and assess if NIS2 is applicable to this company. If NIS2 is applicable, we suggest to identify possible measures. This could be done, for example, with a NIS2 audit and the following gap analysis. Furthermore, it is the first step for risk assessment of the company. You could review already implemented measures and identify possible weaknesses or gaps in your company. Once this is done, or simultaneously, you should plan resources and clarify responsibility. Plan resources, we assume that in most companies, the implementation of the obligations under the NIS2 directive will take time and resources. So you should plan ahead and take organizational measures. Who will be responsible? What team will be responsible, and who is the designated person who is primarily responsible for implementing the regulations? Furthermore, if you need external knowledge, it is essential to review possible external partners in good time who are able to support you. Once this is done, the measures will need to be implemented, which will also take time. So although there is no law yet, we think that the implementation should be done urgently. Furthermore, the management bodies must be taken on board, because in the end they will be liable if there are any infringements. Furthermore, companies should think which measures they could take to ensure business continuity, as in implement respective technical and organizational measures, such as backup management and sufficient staff and sufficient organizational measures to guarantee compliance with the short notice periods if an incident happens. And as always, we suggest that each step you take should be documented for every measure taken, in order to provide this as a documentation for the competent authority. That's it for now. Let's have a look at France.
Thank you, Maximilian. So I'm not going to be original, because obviously a lot of common and similar measures can be taken in France. So first of all, as for Austria and other EU member states, of course, it is essential to determine whether your organization falls within the scope of NIS2 and its transposition texts in France. A very practical tip you can use in this regard an online tool provided by the ANSSI, the French security agency. It's very easy to use, and it will help you to check whether or not your organization is concerned. Of course, you will have to validate the results obtained with your legal experts in order to be 100% sure that you are concerned and have to comply with the NIS2 obligations. So once you have confirmed your status, the next step is to appoint a dedicated NIS2 project manager. Of course, this person should have a strong background in both cybersecurity and project management. His or her role will be to coordinate all compliance activities, serve as the main point of contact for NIS2 matters, and liaise with the ANSI as well as its local representatives if need be. You will also have to register your organization with the ANSI, the French agency. So pending the entry into force of the registration requirement in France, which will occur with the publication of the regulatory text that I mentioned earlier, ANSI will very soon make available a first version of the registration service to enable entities to anticipate this step and actually pre-register. The service provides a guided process to meet the requirements of the directive and includes automatic data entry where possible. So you will soon be in a position to pre-register with ANSI. It is also crucial to conduct a comprehensive cybersecurity audit and gap analysis, as mentioned by Maximilian. This involves mapping your IT systems, reviewing your current security controls, and identifying any weaknesses. To ensure a structured approach, you can use a recognized standard such as ISO 27001. This will help you clearly identify and prioritize the gaps between your current practices and the requirements of the NIS2 directive and the French transposition text. Organizations must develop incident response and business continuity plans as well. These plans must be tested and regularly updated, of course. Because as you know, it's mandatory to be able to report under NIS2 any significant incidents to the competent authorities, and teams must be ready to respond quickly to significant incidents. Also, based on the results of your audit, you should also implement appropriate security measures and risk management strategies. This could include, for example, deploying technical solutions like access controls and multi-factor authentication, as well as establishing ongoing monitoring of your IT systems. Furthermore, the trainings and awareness are also vital. Entities should not wait the NIS2 directive to be transposed into French law, but should already start training teams and also the management. It is also important to maintain up-to-date compliance documentation and to monitor any changes in relevant regulations. As I mentioned earlier, we are still waiting for the transposition text, so that's something that you should monitor and check. Lastly, I would say that reviewing your contracts and contract templates is also essential. The regulation of supply chain is one of the most notable advances of the NIS2 Directive. In this respect, you must ensure that all cybersecurity clauses in your contracts and templates, the contracts you have with suppliers, partners, and service providers, are updated to meet NIS2 requirements with, where appropriate, I would say SLAs, so the service level agreements. This includes, in particular, specifying clear security obligations like right to audit, incident reporting duties, and expectations for supply chain security. Regularly updating these clauses will help manage third-party risks and demonstrate compliance with the NIS2 Directive as well. So I will now hand over to Sylvia, who will present what can be done in Germany.
Thank you very much, Jean-Baptiste. I think it's interesting to hear that the requirements in the end are quite similar in all countries because, well, based on the NIS2 Directive, we have implemented in each country in the end the same issues into the law, and therefore I would like to focus on my experiences, on our experiences, what is the best to do and who shall be, well, do what. And one point I would like to figure out is that the management should take the responsibility, because in the end, the management is the one who's liable, and the management is the one, I always call it from top to the down, who has to be someone who's going forward. If the management does not know what they have to do and what the cybersecurity risks are and what should be implemented, then it's always difficult, well, to talk to the employees or to find out what the employees should do, and they do not respect in the end what they have to do beside their usual work, because it's a lot to do to implement all the cybersecurity measures, and you have to, well, to check beside your usual work what you have to do in your own department, and you have to, well, to comply with all the requirements. And therefore, it's always necessary to train in the end or at the beginning the management so that they know what to do, and then to train the employees as well. Based on my experience, it makes sense to try or to audit your emergency processes. For example, if there's a cybersecurity incident, is it really known by each employee or by each member of your security team, your maybe IT security officer or whoever, what he has to do? For example, if the cyber incident leads to a problem with your mobiles, leads to a problem with your internet access, and leads to a problem with the access, maybe even to the access control in the entry of your buildings. And what do you do then? You cannot reach anybody. And therefore, it makes sense that you have a communication in your company, how to deal with a cybersecurity incident, how to, well, to reach your employees in this case, and who has to be reached, and maybe to train it. I think this makes sense, because otherwise you might have a bigger problem if you have such a security incident. And as Jean-Baptiste already said, the same is true for your suppliers. We have a lot of supplier audits presently, because what do you do if there's an incident in your Microsoft Azure cloud? Do you have control over the Azure cloud? Do you have control over your cloud service provider? Do you have implemented all the necessary audits, or do you have the documentation in line? I think this is always difficult, because in Germany, the BS, they said that it's not only done with a certification, for example, with ISO 27001 or other TISAX or whatever audits. They say it's necessary that you prove in detail, that you document in detail that you have implemented the necessary cybersecurity measures. And partly the focus of such certificates or recommendation or whatever, they are not cybersecurity in the end. And therefore, it's necessary that you check based on maybe paragraph 30 of the BSI Act, that you check there what are the necessary measures you have to implement step by step, who is the one who's responsible and who's the one you have to train and who's the one you have to, well, to include in all the processes. And then you have to document all the paperwork. I think it's a lot of paperwork you have to do there. On the one side from the technical side and on the other side from the documentation side regarding your processes. And this is not done, to be honest, with certification. And as we've talked about suppliers, you have to, well, to state clear that all your suppliers comply with all the requirements. And I think this is difficult as well. And you have to keep it in mind if you prepare or if you implement all the necessary cybersecurity measures which are required by the law. And as I've said, it's quite similar in Germany compared with France or with Austria. What is interesting as well, maybe if you register, this is something I think on an international basis might make sense, that you have to register in each Europe country as well. Not only in Germany, for example, but in France, you have to do the registration in each company only under specific circumstances. It's allowed that you say, okay, I only register in Germany if you are in a specific branch or whatever, but usually you have to do it in each country, which is a lot of paperwork, and therefore it makes sense that you now have maybe an unyer security officer who's working for all the countries, and that you are clear who's the one to whom you have to talk to and implement the processes. And then I hand over to Mario again, to Italy. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for the questions I've seen in the Q&A chat, so we will come back on them afterwards. Then, regarding compliance requested in Italy, as we said, we have already a list of NIS2 entities. What it is requested to them is to ensure that by 31 of July, all the data will be double-checked and completed. Then, afterwards, by 31 May of each year, the NIS2 companies have to double-check their data and look at the annual update information, the to-do list that you will find on the second part of the slide. And in any case, they have to notify to the authority through the IT platform all changes regarding the information already transmitted. Then, as we said before, the NIS2 entities have to comply with the obligation regarding notification of the basic significant incident, and then comply with the basic security measures. This has to be done by 31 of September 2026, as you have seen in the previous slide. Then I will leave the chair to Gasia for the third part of our webinar. Please, Gasia.
Thank you so much, Mario. So now that we've spoken about the practical measures, we're going to be focusing on the support and assistance measures or good practices in each of the national competent authorities. Barbara and Maximilian, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Gasia. So Austrian companies are offered some very basic guidance currently on various platforms which are only available in the German language with regard to the NIS2 obligations. There's one official website which was created under the domain NIS-GV.at. which also refers to two other platforms, one by the Austrian Economic Chamber of Commerce. They have created an online guide to the topic, Is My Company Affected? And also offer seminars and webinars. And another platform is the Austrian cybersecurity platform, which aims to cooperate between private and public sectors on cybersecurity. The postponement gives the affected institutions a bit more time to prepare, because the regulations will only apply once they have been transposed into national law. But still, we do not recommend companies to wait.
Yeah, especially since with NIS2 now, the mandatory security measures and reporting requirements for security incidents will apply to around 4,000 medium-sized companies, according to the Austrian Chamber of Economics. Companies and institutions from 18 different sectors in Austria, so that is much more companies and institutions are subject than before. And therefore, it is, in our opinion, critical to understand that the responsibility to determine the applicability of NIS2 remains with the company and not any other institution or government body, especially since any infringements and any liability will be the management will be subject to. While it's not clear what the scope of the implementation will be, we suggest using the previous draft implementation and the directive as guidance. And if your company should be subject to NIS2, we suggest to start with the implementation urgently. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As for France, I find that we are quite lucky actually, because the ANSSI, so the French cybersecurity agency, is providing a lot of materials and tools. So the ANSSI is developing tailored control mechanisms and preparing a dedicated online platform to facilitate interactions between the agency and the regulated entities and provide practical cybersecurity solutions. The thing is that the ANSSI recognized the challenges faced by SMEs and local authorities when they are concerned entities, and because they have less resources than the larger private companies. So the ANSSI recognized these challenges, these difficulties, and they are committed to enhanced support, including the publication of cybersecurity frameworks, guidance documents, and sector-specific recommendations. So basically, you can use two tools provided by the French administration and the ANSSI in particular. First, there is a wide range of documentation and also videos on a platform called Mes Services Cyber. So you have the link on the slide. So this first platform, on this platform you can find guidelines, recommendation, and best practices, and the documents that you will find on this platform aim to improve the cybersecurity posture of public administrations, but also private sector entities and even individuals. So you will notice also that platform that you have the possibility to access free cyber diagnosis and receive tailored support to address specific needs, cybersecurity needs. The other platform that I mentioned on this slide is the dedicated NIS2 platform that I mentioned earlier. It is called Mon Espace NIS2. Mon Espace NIS2 is a portal which allows entities to check their status with regard to the NIS2 directive. That is to say, determine whether they are an essential or important entity. It enables to notify incidents, monitor compliance progress, and access a variety of educational resources, including, for example, a general information page on NIS2 directive that you can consult to find out more about the NIS2 directive and also the transposition of this directive into French law. This page covers essential and important entities, the sectors concerned, their respective obligations, and so on. And you have also on this portal FAQ section, which is regularly updated and expanded. So let's now hear from Sylvia about what exists in Germany.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we are well prepared as well because our BSI, our federal office in this regard, they published a lot of information on their official website, and I think everybody in Germany is used to it because they have, well, not only with regard to NIS2, but as well with other technical and organizational measures, they have there implemented a lot of guidelines which are very helpful. And what they published as well is, for example, a decision tree. If you really have to comply with NIS2, or if you are under the NIS2 directive respectively, then under the BSI Act, and what is applicable if you are an essential company or not, and whatever. This is an easy tool as it is established in France as well, as Jean-Baptiste already said. And we have, beside this, we have a lot of information what you have to do and how you can implement as an entity the requirements of the NIS2 directive. And they have decided, well, to publish FAQs regarding the NIS2 directive, and then with regard to the BSI Act, because they said it was highly discussed in Germany if the NIS2 directive is directly applicable for the companies as long as the BSI Act is not in force, and therefore everybody was a little bit afraid that they have to do something. But presently, I think everything is clear. Now we have established the BSI Act, or it will become in force by the end of the year, and everybody can focus on it. We have there as well FAQs regarding what to do, which is quite good. If you have any or if you need any information, what the measure should be, who has to be trained, how you can do it, and whatever, and who has to register, which companies have to register there, and what measures you have to implement. Just read it there. It's very helpful. We have, beside this, with regard to DORA and NIS2, one statement regarding from our Federal Financial Supervisory Authority, because it wasn't fully clear what is when applicable, and they clearly stated there that DORA is for the finance sector, the specialized requirement, which means that first you have to implement DORA if you're in the financial sector, and then you have to check what further requirements have to be fulfilled under NIS2. Therefore, a lot of guidelines. Well, we'll help you if you have any further questions in this regard. And then I hand over to Italy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Silvia. Also regarding Italy, there are basically a lot of documentation published by the competent authority, which is the Agenzia per la Cybersicurezza Nazionale. We do not have tools or IT systems to double check, but due to the fact that the implementation has started in February, the frequently asked questions and all the various technical documentation published is rather complete, so that you can find a lot of useful information even regarding implementation in the other, to be useful also for the implementation of other countries. And I listed here all the referrals, all the links to such documentation. So I would leave the chair to Gasha for continuing the performance of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Mario. So as we earlier said, we also have the honor today to welcome Adrien Nortin, CTO at Seneca, who's actually going to give us some operational feedback on the compliance and practical solutions, as well as difficulties implemented to overcome them. Adrien?
Thank you for the introduction. So we'll directly dive in. So it is a challenging rollout. There has been a survey recently for French companies that actually show that only a third of these companies do actually have a clear and complete understanding and vision of their obligations. That is the first thing. The second thing is that only a third of these surveyed companies have drafted or actually prepared a concrete plan in the months ahead. It seems that less than 5% of these companies are actually on schedule for now. So the implementation seems rather difficult for most of them. Another thing to look at is that 20% of these companies have actually changed their organization in order to support their efforts in implementing the directive. The good news is that overall, 2 out of 3 companies have appointed someone or a group of people in charge of the implementation of the certain measures, which is actually showing that most companies and most businesses take the matter quite seriously. We also have 30% of the company that do declare having a lack of information or support from different instances. And as it was said earlier by Jean-Baptiste, if I remember correctly, 75% of the SMEs are concerned with this problem. And move on to the next slide. All right. There is also a need for prioritization in the different plans. We see that most companies that have actually planned ahead, 80% of them will only focus on sensitization sessions and programs, which is actually not enough if we look at the philosophy of the directive itself, meaning that the directive focuses a lot on the proof that businesses are actually capable operationally to respond to incidents. So the philosophy normally is to develop simulations to make sure that there are cyber drills implemented directly in the processes of the concerned essential and important entities. If we look at another, for the problem from another angle, is that the supply chain itself is quite vulnerable. For the past years, we see that most attacks come from it, and it seems that only less than 45% of the concerned businesses actually do take care of it, and less than 40% do ask for their partners and suppliers to actually be audited on a regular basis. It seems that only 20% of the companies do ask for their partners to, in contract, to be compliant, which is, I think, less than what is required in the future months and years ahead. The last part about and the priority of the company, what level of priorities most of these businesses put the directive in, is the investment strategy. Luckily, it seems that everyone seems concerned. More than 70% of these companies are willing to invest, but it seems that on this part, a certain amount of them do wish that there is a return of investment, meaning that at some point they would like for the whole ecosystem to lessen the load on their own cybersecurity departments. Maybe we can move on to the next. All right. So operational efficiency is the core of the matter in the field, meaning that traditional security centers, security operational centers, are actually at capacity as of today. So there is a need of automation and adaptation of the current processes in order to make sure that most of the points in the directives are covered. For the automation part, infrastructure monitoring needs to be automated, risk management reporting can also be automated to a certain extent, and business continuity plans with the emergence of certain practices around site reliability engineering can also be tackled. So there are a few opportunities for most companies to actually emerge as being more robust in future years if they follow the directive philosophy behind it. Last but not least, we have a strong need for cooperation between the different concerned businesses and CSIRTs, so the computer security incident response teams that are national entities that will be identified in each country. It seems that we need more standardization at some point in order to help, especially the small and medium enterprises, to actually implement their own measures. So there are challenges, but we also have opportunities and tools in order to implement different measures. One of the best ones is the opportunity to embrace the cloud technologies. It has been here for a few years now, and of course we have the issue of digital sovereignty, but OVH Cloud, just to just cite this one, is one of the main leaders, and it's a very solid choice when it comes to implementing some measures. Of course, it does not have, as of today, dedicated measures covering NIS2, but based on their certificates and their the power of the staff to implement measures, it seems to be still a strong choice. One of the good students out there in the markets is still Google. They have been very proactive in persuading that they are covering most of the parts that are in the directive, meaning that they are training the staff, they are making sure that they run personal background check, they provide audit reports on a regular basis, and they are also coordinating with the states directly. The other major cloud providers are also proposing toolboxes for operational teams to implement their own measures, and it seems that it really accelerates most of the deployments. Move on to the next one. And in order to finish the operational feedback, I would like to focus more on the need to shifting net security, meaning that security is not really a matter that is dedicated to the cybersecurity departments, especially in large companies. As I've said earlier, they are already at full capacity, and we have a need to be more proactive and less reactive to the vulnerabilities and attacks. So another problem with cybersecurity departments is that they are facing IT systems that are increasingly more complex over the years, and they cannot cover all the technical capabilities that are required in order to secure from end to end all these IT systems. So it seems that we need more and more for the people that handle digital transformations, developers, architects, DevSecOps engineers, and even project managers to be not only sensitized, but trained on the different measures that they need to apply to implement directly at the core of the digital solutions. So this is a secure by design approach that we will highly recommend most of us consulting companies, experts on the subject. When it comes to reassuring directors and managers that measures are taken, usually we rely a lot on certifications. Unfortunately, even if they do help and they are a bit reassuring, we do not have a set of certifications that will for sure cover all the NIS2 directives, propositions and points of vulnerability. So the idea here is to make sure to have concrete training plans with also knowledgeable entities such as the NCFOP France to adapt the existing training materials supporting document to the concrete challenges of the different businesses in order to make sure that these are quite relevant in the future. So thank you very much. That's it from me. And hopefully give you a glimpse of the state of the field.
Thank you so much, Adrian. As we see that time is running, what I suggest is that we jump into the Q&Rs that we received right away. So the first question was for Italy. So for Mario, how many companies are in the scope of NIS2 in Italy, and how did ACN manage to assess all the registrations, probably thousands within a few weeks?
Yes, there are no official communication in this respect, but there are. It is estimated that there are from 30,000 to 50,000 companies within the scope of the NIS2 directive, and the reason, the mechanics by which the Italian authority double-checked the information was that there were substantially two lists. One based on a self-assessment activity done by each company which deemed to be involved into such process, and another one which has been prepared by public authorities, first of all ministries, which prepared a list of entities which were deemed to be involved into the NIS2 process. Then the Italian Cybersecurity Authority crossed the full list and writes to a number of companies which were in the public list, so that the Italian authority brought to these companies saying, we did not see you in the self-assessment list. Can you explain why you did not self-assess in this respect? And at the same time, is still double-checking the position of those who are within the self-assessment list, but substantially the point is that the check has been completed at the moment, so that there is, there is answers for those companies who are listed as NIS2 companies, and I will answer to the second question regarding this at a later stage. So please, Gasia.
And thank you so much, Mario. Perhaps we're going to jump to Germany now. Sylvia, you have a question with regards to who you considered as management. Is it only the CEO and deputy CEO, or also others? And how does it apply to subsidiaries?
Thank you, Garcia. Yes, it's interesting because in the BSI Act, it is stated that indeed the CEOs, which means the managing directors, that they have to be trained with regard to cybersecurity issues. And this is as well mentioned in the FAQs of the BSI. They said, okay, it's necessary that managing directors, and I think their successor as well, that they have to be trained. And it might make sense, to be honest, that it's not only the CEO and that it's not only the managing director, if it's a CEO, but that you train as well your IT security officer. I think this is necessary in the end, because the managing director, he has to be trained with regard to what his obligations are and how he has to implement the cybersecurity issues, but he has to decide as well, and has to be trained as well, how he can, well, train his employees and how they can be compliant. And therefore, yes, first of all, the managing director, and then in the end, the other guys. With regard to subsidiaries, it's the same, because each subsidiary has a legal entity or is a known legal entity, and then you have to train their managing directors as well, and all the CEOs or whoever is at the top of the company, and therefore I think the same applies. It might make sense that you have one training for all. If you're an international company, makes it easier. Then you have one training concept, and all of them can be trained in the same way, and then you know in your company group that all the requirements are fulfilled and that they have the same level, and that all the requirements which you would like to implement as maybe the mother company, that this is done in your whole group as well. Thank you. then I hand over to Garcia again.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. We have another question for Mario with regards to specific questions where Anja is asking that they have registered their Italian entity in time but haven't got any feedback from ACN so far. We sent out an email to ACN to ask about the status, but nothing yet.
Yes, I suggest to rewrite again to the ACN, but by means of a certified email, which is, a system which in Italian is posta elettronica certificata. So you will be sure that ACN will formally receive a request in this respect, because at the moment ACN is about to finish the double check I mentioned before, so that you should receive an answer by saying, okay, you are confirmed to be a NIS2 company, or you are out of the list due to the fact that there are no relevant requirements in this respect. So I suggest to write them to write to the ACN again, but through the certified email. Please, Gasha.
Thank you so much. We still have a bit of time, so for all the persons who are participating, if you have more questions, do not hesitate to put it on the chat, and also some technical information. You've seen that at the end of the slides, all of our colleagues' coordinates are actually written. You will be receiving the link to the webinar by mail, and also the full webinar will be available on the YouTube channel of unyer. So again, if you have more questions, please do not hesitate. We still have a bit of time, but if not, well, then we wish you all to have a great day and speak soon. Thank you.